Hello, everybody! This is our first ever podcast. We're a friends group who we decided to create this podcast called Froggy. I hope with all my heart you like it because we made with too much love. We are aimed at a teenager audience. Our subjects are really interesting, such as a stage of life and problems that it involved.
The topic that we are going to talk today is adolescence. Adolescence is a time between childhood and adulthood, between the ages of 12 and 18, that is marked by growth and change, and physical and emotional development. Adolescence is viewed as a transitional period between childhood and adulthood, whose purpose is the preparation of children for adult roles.
So in this part of the podcast, I'll be talking about mental changes in a teenager. When we're children, we're such an innocent that we don't care about what's going on around us. But as long as we're growing up, we realize that the world we are living in it isn't perfect. So during this process, the teenager gets started to change their own way to see and think about the things. The teen will have so much mental changes, such as social changes, emotional changes, and changes in relationships. The social changes involve searching for identity, seeking more independence, seeking more responsibility, looking for a new experience, thinking more about right and wrong. When we are children, we don't consider important to find out who we really are, but when children's becoming into a teenager, they get started searching for identity. Young people are busy working out who they are and where they fit in the world. This search can be influenced by gender, peer group, cultural background, media, school, and family expectations. About seeking more independence, this is likely to influence the decision your child makes and the relationships your child has with family and friends. About seeking more responsibility, both at home and at school, because children don't consider important to have responsibilities as a teenager do. About looking for new experience, the nature of teenage brain development means that teenagers are likely to seek out new experience and engage in more risk-taking behavior, but they're still developing control over their impulse. About thinking more about right and wrong, your child will start developing a stronger individual set of values and morals. Teenagers also learn that they're responsible for their own actions, decisions, and consequences. They question more things. Your words and actions shape your child's sense of right and wrong. About emotion changes, you might notice that your teen will also show strong feelings and intense emotion at different times. Moods might seem unpredictable. These emotional ups and downs can lead to increased conflict. Your child's brain is still learning how to control and express emotion in a grown-up way. It's more sensitive to your emotions. Young people get better at reading and processing other people's emotions as they get older. While they're developing these skills, they can sometimes misread facial expression or body language. Is more self-conscious, especially about physical appearance and changes. Teenage self-esteem is often affected by appearance or by how teenagers think they look. As they develop, teens might compare their bodies with those of friends and peers. Goes through an invisible stage of thinking and acting as if nothing bad could happen to him. Your child's decision-making skills are still developing, and your child is still learning about the consequences of actions. The teen will also experiment changes in relationship, which it will involve spend less time with family and more time with friends. Cause more argument with you. Some conflict between parents and children during the teenage years is normal, as teens seek more independence. It actually shows that your child is maturing. Conflict tends to peak in early adolescence. If you feel like you're arguing with your child all the time, it might help you to know that this isn't likely to affect your long-term relationship with your child. Sees things differently from you. This isn't because your child wants to accept you. It's because your child is beginning to think more abstractly and question differently points of view. At the same time, some teens find it hard to understand the effects of their behavior and comments on other people. These skills will develop with time.
One of the important parts that occur and develop during adolescence is the search for identity. The development of a strong and stable sense of self is widely considered to be one of the central tasks of adolescence. Despite the fact that identity development occurs throughout one's lifetime, adolescence is the first time that individuals begin to think about how our identity may affect our lives. During adolescence, we are much more self-conscious about our changing identities than at any other stage in our lives. But what is identity? Identity refers to our sense of who we are as individuals and as members of social groups. Our identities are not simply our own creation. Identities grow in response to both internal and external factors. To some extent, each of us chooses an identity, but identities are also formed by environmental forces out of our control. Identity is dynamic and complex and changes over time. Identity is divided into two parts: self-identity and social identities. Self-identity refers to how we define ourselves. Self-identity forms the basis of our self-esteem. In adolescence, the way we see ourselves changes in response to peers, family, and school, among other social environments. Our self-identities shape our perceptions of belonging. Social identity is constructed by others and may differ from self-identity. Typically, people categorize individuals according to broad, socially defined labels. For example, if you have dark skin, you may be labeled black by others, even though you may not have adopted that identity for yourself. A positive self-identity is correlated with positive self-esteem. All identities are not equally valued by society, so some adolescents may especially need reinforcement to help them construct a positive sense of self. Now, we will talk about the beginning of an active sexual life. Adolescent sexuality is a stage of human development in which adolescents experience and explore sexual feelings. Interest in sexuality intensifies during the onset of puberty, and sexuality is often a vital aspect of teenagers' lives. In humans, sexual interest may be expressed in a number of ways, such as flirting, kissing, masturbation, or having sex with a partner. Sexual interest among adolescents, as among adults, can vary greatly and is influenced by cultural norms and mores. Sex education, as well as comprehensive sexuality education, provide sexual orientation and social controls, such as age of consent laws. Sexual activity in general is associated with various risks. The risks of sexual intercourse include unwanted pregnancy and contracting a sexually transmitted infection, such as HIV or AIDS, which can be reduced with availability and use of a condom or adopting other safe sex practices. Contraceptives specifically reduce the chance of pregnancy. The risks are higher for young adolescents because their brains are not neurally mature. Several brain regions in the frontal lobe of the cerebral cortex and in the hypothalamus that are deemed important for self-control, delayed gratification, risk analysis, and appreciation are not fully mature. The brain is not fully mature until age 25. Partially because of this, young adolescents are generally less equipped than adults to make sound decisions and anticipate consequences of sexual behavior. Although brain imaging and behavioral correlation studies in teens have been criticized for not being causative, thus possibly reaffirming cultural biases.
Now I will talk about sexually transmitted diseases. Sexually transmitted infections, STI, also refers to as sexually transmitted diseases, STD, are infections that are commonly spread by sexual activity, especially vaginal intercourse, anal sex, and oral sex. Many times, STI initially do not cause symptoms. This results in a greater risk of passing the disease on to others. Symptoms and signs of disease may include vaginal discharge, penile discharge, ulcers on or around the genitals, and pelvic pain. STI can be transmitted to an infant before or during childbirth and may result in poor outcomes for the baby. Some STI might cause problems with the ability to get pregnant. More than 30 different bacteria, viruses, and parasites can be transmitted through sexual activity. Bacteria STI include chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. Viral STI include genital herpes, HIV, and AIDS, and genital warts. Parasitic STI include trichomoniasis, while usually spread by sex. Some STI can be spread by non-sexual contacts with donor tissue, while breastfeeding, or during childbirth. STI diagnostic tests are usually easily available in the developed world, but this is often not the case in the developing world. The most effective way of preventing STI is by not having sex. Some vaccinations may also decrease the risk of certain infections, including hepatitis B and some types of HPV. Safer sex practices such as use of condoms. Having a smaller number of sexual partners and being in a relationship where each person only has sex with the other also decreases the risk. Circumcision in adult males may be effective to prevent some infections. During school, comprehensive sex education may also be useful. Most STI are treatable or curable. Of the most common infections, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and trichomoniasis are curable, while herpes, hepatitis B, HIV, AIDS, and HPV are treatable, but not curable. Resistance to certain antibiotics is developing among some organisms, such as gonorrhea. It is important to know about this because if you don't take care of yourself, it can have serious consequences.
Well, in this part of the podcast, we move on to another topic that is closely linked to adolescence. We will talk about depression and anxiety and how some celebrities have been victims of this. But what is depression really? It is a mental disorder that is characterized by the presence of sadness, loss of interest, lack of self-esteem, fatigue, and lack of concentrations. This is caused by certain biological factors, such as hormonal changes, alterations in certain parts of the brain, the loss of someone, etc. American singer Britney Spears, who has been famous for her early millennium successes, has also suffered depression. She achieved such fame that she failed to manage such a situation. She fell into drugs, shaved her head, and came to walk half naked in California. On the other hand, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, was not free from this problem. He was noted for his choreography, video clip formats, and styling. But all this was not enough to avoid depression. It is speculated that his death was due to an overdose of ancillary drugs. And now we will talk about anxiety, which is based on worry and intense fears in everyday situations. This is normal in stressful moments. The model Kendall Jenner, on multiple occasions, has spoken publicly about his fight against anxiety. In fact, several seasons ago, she had to withdraw from the passages because of her anxiety. And Lady Gaga has repeatedly raised her voice to break the taboo of anxiety and depression. Her case stems from a rape when he was little. This is very strong and personally a very sensitive issue. We, in innumerable occasions, envy or desire the way of life of celebrities or star or entertainment world. But we have to know that not everything is happiness and red carpets. That is why it is good to know some examples of celebrities with disorders, to see how much money is not everything. So if you are going through any of these disorders, you need to treat it immediately, because you can keep moving forward until you may reach the point of waiting to end with your beautiful and precious life. And obviously nobody wants that. To avoid these things, will in stressful situations, try to give yourself some time. Put music that relaxes you and stretches your whole body from head to toe.
Hello, I'm gonna talk about eating disorders. Eating disorders are problems with the way people eat. Common types of eating disorders are anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, and avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. Teens with anorexia eat very little on purpose. They fear looking fat, have a distorted body image. They are very strict about what and how much they will eat. Anorexia can lead to health problems caused by undernutrition and low body weight, such as low blood pressure, slow or irregular heartbeats, feeling tired, weak, dizzy or faint, weak bones, and slow growth. Bulimia. Basically, the people with bulimia overeat and feel out of control to stop, and then they go to the bathroom to vomit. Bulimia can lead to health problems caused by vomiting, laxatives, and diuretics, such as low blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, feeling tired, weak, dizzy, or faint, blood in vomit or stool, tooth erosion and cavities, and swollen cheeks. Binge eating. People with binge eating overeat. Eat even when they are not hungry. Many people with binge eating disorder eat faster than normal. They may eat alone so others don't see how much they are eating. Binge eating can lead to weight-related health problems such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and fatty liver. People with avoidant restrictive food intake disorder are not interested in food or avoid foods, lose weight, or don't gain expected amount of weight. Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder may lead to health problems that stem from poor nutrition, similar to anorexia. They not get enough vitamins, minerals, and protein, need nutrition supplements, and grow poorly. There's no single cause for eating disorders. Genes, environment, and stressful events all play a role. Eating disorders are best treated by a team that includes a doctor, dietitian, and therapist. So if you think you may have an eating disorder, please tell someone. Get help early and be patient. Now I'm gonna talk about drug abuse. Alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco are the most common drugs used by teenagers. Young people use drugs for many reasons. For fun, out of curiosity, to feel a part of a group, or to change how they feel because they want to feel better or different. There's no evidence to support the theory that using cannabis will automatically lead to someone using other drugs, such as amphetamines and heroin. Help is available for parents and young people who have concerns about drug use. Negative consequences of teen drug abuse may include drug dependence. Teens who misuse drugs are at increased risk of serious drug use later in life. Poor judgment. Teenage drug use is associated with poor judgment in social and personal interactions. Sexual activity. Drug use is associated with high-risk sexual activity, unsafe sex, and unplanned pregnancy. Mental health disorders. Drug use can complicate or increase the risk of mental health disorders, such as depression and anxiety. Impaired driving. Driving under the influence of any drug can impair a driver's motor skills. During the driver, passengers, and others on the road at risk. And changes in school performance. Substance use can result in a decline in academic performance. Health effects of drugs. Drug use can result in drug addiction, serious impairment, illness, and death. Health risks of commonly used drugs include the following: cocaine, risk of heart attack, stroke, and seizures; ecstasy, risk of liver failure and heart failure; inhalants, risk of damage to heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys from long-term use. Marijuana, risk of impairment in memory, learning, problem solving, and concentration; risk of psychosis such as schizophrenia, hallucination, or paranoia, later in life associated with early and frequent use. Methamphetamine, risk of psychotic behaviors from long-term use or high doses. Opioids, risk of respiratory distress or death from overdose. If you have drugs problem, please tell someone. And if you know someone who have these problems, help him. We are talking about a life.
Now, we will leave you with a song whose lyrics are very cute and can be useful for teenagers to have insecurities. You don't have to be a hero to save the world. It doesn't make you a narcissist to love yourself. It feels like nothing is easy, it'll never be. That's alright, let it out, talk to me. You don't have to be a prodigy to be unique. You don't have to know what to say or what to think. You don't have to be anybody you can never be. That's alright, let it out, talk to me. Anxiety, tossing, turning. survive. Suddenly, it's alright. Come inside and talk to me.